In the rugged sweep of Indian territory, where the law traveled on horseback and justice depended on the courage of a few, one name carried quiet weight among the deputies of the federal court at Fort Smith: Zeke Miller. A man who didn't seek attention, didn't chase glory, and didn't leave behind long interviews or newspaper boasts. But the men who rode with him remembered his steadiness, his grit, and the way he stepped into danger without hesitation. Zeke Miller served as a deputy U.S. Marshal during one of the most violent eras in the territory's history. The land was vast, the fugitives were desperate, and the badge alone wasn't enough to keep a man alive. You needed instinct, you needed endurance, and you needed the kind of courage that didn't fade when the trail grew cold or the night grew long. Miller was known for tracking fugitives across miles of open country, moving through forests, creeks, and rocky ground with a patience that unsettled the men he pursued. He worked alongside other Black and Native deputies, forming a brotherhood built on trust, shared danger, and the understanding that every ride could be their last. The work was relentless. Days in the saddle, nights under the stars, arrests that turned into sudden fights, and long escorts back to Fort Smith, where Judge Parker's court waited to decide the fate of the captured. Through it all, Zeke Miller carried himself with quiet resolve. He wasn't the loudest, he wasn't the fastest, but he was dependable. And in the territory, dependability could save lives. One winter, Miller joined a small posse sent to bring in a group of men wanted for robbery and assault. The trail led them deep into the territory, through thick brush and uneven ground. The fugitives knew the land well, and they were determined not to return to Fort Smith. As the deputies closed in, the men they sought prepared an ambush. Miller rode ahead, scanning the terrain, reading the signs the way seasoned deputies did. But the attack came fast. Shots erupted from the brush, catching the posse off guard. In the chaos, Zeke Miller was struck. The deputies fought back, driving off the attackers, but the damage was done. Miller fell in the line of duty, giving his life in the same quiet, steady way he had lived it, without fanfare, without hesitation, and without turning away from the responsibility he carried. His death hit the Fort Smith deputies hard. They had lost a brother, a partner, a man who had stood beside them on long rides and dangerous arrests. And though the newspapers barely recorded his name, the men who knew him never forgot the sacrifice he made. Zeke Miller's story is one of the many hidden threads in the fabric of frontier justice, a reminder that the West was shaped not just by the famous names, but by the countless Black lawmen who rode into danger with nothing but their training, their instincts, and their commitment to the badge. Today, we honor him, a deputy whose courage deserves to be remembered, a protector whose service helped bring order to a lawless land, and a man whose legacy lives on in the stories we reclaim and the history we refuse to let fade. This is Black Justice Untold, the stories they tried to erase, now remembered. If this moved you, like, share, and subscribe so we can keep reclaiming our history together. Our stories deserve to be seen, heard, and remembered.